The day I discovered my husband's betrayal, I didn't scream, throw anything, or collapse into tears. I simply smiled, folded the evidence back into my purse, and quietly finished paying for the groceries. The cashier wished me a wonderful afternoon, completely unaware that my entire life had just shattered into 1,000 invisible pieces. By the time the sun dipped lower across the busy parking lot, I had already made one decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to destroy him. I was going to rebuild myself so completely that watching me succeed would become the greatest punishment he would ever face. If you believe that kindness is stronger than hate, that healing is more powerful than revenge, and that everyone deserves hope and second chances, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing family. For 12 years, Alara believed she had built the kind of marriage people quietly admired. She and her husband, Grant, owned a charming suburban home filled with family photographs, mismatched coffee mugs collected from vacations, and handmade birthday cards from their 9-year-old daughter, Marin. Friends often described them as the perfect couple because they laughed together at neighborhood barbecues, volunteered at school events, and celebrated every anniversary with cheerful photographs that flooded social media. Looking back, Alara realized those pictures captured only carefully selected moments. Cameras never recorded silence. They never showed lonely breakfasts, distracted conversations, or the growing distance that slowly settled between two people who had once been inseparable. Grant had become increasingly busy over the previous year. He blamed demanding clients, unexpected meetings, and constant business travel. At first Alara admired his dedication. She supported him without complaint, preparing lunches, managing their daughter's school schedule, and quietly carrying every responsibility at home. Whenever she mentioned feeling lonely, Grant promised that life would settle down soon. His reassuring smile always convinced her to wait just a little longer. One bright Saturday afternoon, while shopping for decorations for Marin's upcoming birthday, Alara stopped at a small cafe for coffee. She noticed Grant's favorite silver sedan parked outside. Her first thought was excitement. Maybe he had finished work early and wanted to surprise her. Carrying 2 cups of coffee, she walked toward the outdoor seating area. Then she saw him. Grant wasn't alone. Across the table sat a woman laughing as though she had known him forever. His hand rested comfortably over hers. The expression on his face wasn't the tired, distracted look Alara had grown accustomed to. It was warm, relaxed, and deeply affectionate. The same smile he used to reserve only for her. Alara stood frozen beneath the afternoon sun. She wasn't hidden. She simply wasn't noticed. The world continued moving around her as children chased pigeons across the sidewalk and customers entered nearby stores, completely unaware that one woman's heart had stopped beating for several painful seconds. She quietly placed both untouched coffees into a nearby trash bin and walked away before either of them looked up. That evening Grant returned home carrying flowers. He apologized for working late. He kissed her forehead. He asked about dinner. Alara stared into his eyes while he lied without hesitation. Something inside her changed forever. She realized trust wasn't usually destroyed by discovering betrayal. It was destroyed by watching someone lie with complete confidence after the truth had already been revealed. Instead of confronting him, she observed. Days became weeks. She noticed every small inconsistency. Every unexpected expense. Every mysterious afternoon meeting. Every message he quickly deleted. Every excuse that once sounded believable suddenly became painfully transparent. The more she learned, the calmer she became. Grant mistook her silence for ignorance. In reality, she was preparing for a future he never imagined. Alara opened an old notebook she hadn't touched in years. Before becoming a full-time mother, she had dreamed of building her own interior design business. Marriage, motherhood, and daily responsibilities had slowly pushed those ambitions aside. She convinced herself there would always be time later. Now later had finally arrived. She enrolled in advanced online certification courses while Grant believed she was simply organizing family finances. During school hours, after dropping Marin off, she spent every afternoon studying, practicing digital designs, and rebuilding skills she thought she'd lost forever. For the first time in years, she wasn't waiting for Grant to come home. She was building a future that didn't depend on him. Months passed. Her confidence slowly returned. One local cafe hired her to redesign their indoor seating area. The project received praise online. Soon another client called. Then another. Small jobs turned into larger opportunities. Money she quietly earned went into a private savings account. She never hid income illegally. She simply stopped depending entirely on Grant's paycheck. Meanwhile, Grant became increasingly careless. He spent more time away from home than ever before. He barely noticed the changes happening right in front of him. He didn't notice Alara replacing self-doubt with confidence. He didn't notice her laughter returning. He didn't notice that she no longer asked where he had been. He assumed she'd simply accepted their distant marriage. One sunny afternoon, Marin entered her mother's newly organized home office carrying a colorful drawing. Instead of sketching their entire family together as she always had, the pictures showed only herself and her mother standing beside a bright little house surrounded by flowers. Alara smiled gently. She asked why Daddy wasn't in the drawing. Marin shrugged with heartbreaking innocence. She explained that Daddy was always somewhere else now, so she drew the people who were actually together every day. Those simple words hurt more deeply than discovering the affair. Children often noticed emotional distance long before adults admitted it existed. That drawing became Alara's turning point. She realized she wasn't fighting merely for herself anymore. She was fighting for the emotional future of her daughter. Grant eventually announced another weekend business conference. Alara wished him safe travels. Instead of crying after he left, she packed a picnic basket and spent the entire afternoon with Marin at a beautiful botanical garden filled with blooming roses, colorful butterflies, and cheerful families enjoying the sunshine. As they walked hand in hand, Marin suddenly looked up and asked whether adults could stop loving each other. The question caught Alara completely off guard. She knelt beside her daughter beneath a blooming tree. She carefully explained that sometimes people made painful choices, but genuine love never meant accepting dishonesty or losing respect for yourself. Marin quietly hugged her mother. In that silent embrace, Alara understood something she hadn't fully realized before. Children learn self-worth by watching the adults who raised them. If she stayed only because she feared being alone, Marin might someday believe betrayal should also be tolerated. That realization gave Alara strength stronger than anger. Several weeks later, her business received an unexpected invitation. A prestigious property developer wanted her to submit concepts for renovating luxury apartments. Winning the contract could completely transform her career. She spent countless afternoons preparing presentations while Grant remained absorbed in his secret life. The presentation exceeded every expectation. She won. The contract instantly doubled her annual income projections. For the first time since her marriage began, Alara realized she could comfortably support herself and her daughter without relying on anyone else. She celebrated quietly with Marin by sharing ice cream in a sunny park. Grant never even asked why they seemed so happy that afternoon. His attention remained somewhere else. Ironically, the more independent Alara became, the more Grant started noticing subtle differences. She no longer questioned his schedule. She stopped waiting for him during meals. She laughed more often. She dressed with renewed confidence. She looked genuinely peaceful. Instead of appreciating her happiness, Grant became suspicious. People who lived dishonestly often expected everyone else to do the same. He casually asked whether someone else had entered her life. Alara nearly smiled. The irony was impossible to ignore. The man secretly betraying his wife suddenly feared losing her. She calmly assured him there was no one else. That answer was completely truthful. She wasn't replacing Grant with another man. She was replacing dependence with freedom. A few days later, while organizing financial documents for tax season, Alara discovered something even more devastating than the affair itself. Grant hadn't only betrayed her emotionally. He had secretly borrowed money against joint marital assets without discussing it with her. several financial commitments carried both of their names. If everything collapsed, she and Marin could lose nearly everything they had worked so hard to build. The betrayal suddenly became much bigger than broken promises. It threatened their future. Instead of panicking, Alara immediately contacted a respected attorney and financial advisor. For the first time, she fully understood her legal rights. She carefully documented every financial record, every suspicious transaction, and every piece of evidence. She wasn't planning revenge fueled by anger anymore. She was preparing for justice built upon truth. What Grant still didn't realize was that while he believed he controlled every secret, the woman he underestimated had quietly become stronger, wiser, financially independent, and emotionally unbreakable. The greatest surprise of his life was now only days away, not because Alara intended to ruin him, but because she had finally learned that the most powerful revenge was refusing to let someone else's betrayal define the rest of her story. The meeting with the attorney changed everything. Alara walked into the office carrying a folder filled with documents, bank statements, loan agreements, and screenshots she had quietly collected over the previous several months. She expected to feel frightened, but instead she experienced an unfamiliar sense of peace. For the first time since discovering Grant's betrayal, she wasn't reacting emotionally. She was making thoughtful decisions to protect herself and, most importantly, her daughter. The attorney carefully explained her rights, assuring her that because she had documented everything honestly and legally, she had every opportunity to secure a stable future. Alara left the office feeling taller than she had in years. She finally understood that revenge wasn't about making someone suffer. It was about refusing to suffer because of someone else's choices. Over the following weeks, her interior design business flourished beyond anything she had imagined. The luxury apartment project attracted attention from other developers, and her portfolio spread through word of mouth. Every afternoon she worked passionately, transforming empty spaces into beautiful homes filled with warmth and personality. Each completed project reminded her that she still possessed dreams worth chasing. She wasn't merely surviving anymore. She was creating a future she had once believed was impossible. Grant, however, began noticing that something had changed. The woman who once waited anxiously for his calls no longer checked her phone every few minutes. She no longer questioned his late arrivals or tried desperately to fix their marriage. Instead, she greeted him politely, focused on Marin, and spent her afternoons meeting clients and managing projects. Her confidence unsettled him far more than anger ever could. He found himself watching her with growing confusion. The control he once believed he had over her emotions had quietly disappeared. One bright afternoon, Grant unexpectedly came home early and discovered Alara reviewing blueprints across the dining table. Expensive flower arrangements surrounded the room, prepared for a client's presentation the following day. He stared at the sketches in disbelief. Until that moment, he had no idea how successful her business had become. Rather than expressing pride, he seemed uncomfortable, as though her independence threatened something deep inside him. He casually asked why she had never mentioned how well things were going. Alara simply smiled and explained that she had learned not to postpone her dreams while waiting for someone else's attention. Those words stayed with Grant long after she walked away. A few days later, Grant's carefully balanced double life began collapsing under its own weight. The woman he had been seeing eventually discovered that he had never intended to leave his marriage despite the promises he had repeatedly made. Feeling deceived herself, she ended the relationship and refused all further contact. Overnight, the exciting fantasy Grant had spent months chasing vanished completely. For the first time, he was left alone with the consequences of his own decisions. Instead of finding comfort at home, he encountered a wife who no longer depended on him emotionally. The loneliness he had unknowingly created now surrounded him. Every cheerful laugh between Alara and Marin reminded him of the family he had slowly abandoned while pursuing temporary excitement. One sunny Saturday afternoon, Alara invited Grant to join her and Marin for lunch in the park. She wanted one final opportunity for honesty before making the most important decision of her life. Families filled the green lawns while children played nearby beneath clear blue skies. It was the same kind of peaceful afternoon they had once enjoyed together years earlier. Grant arrived believing it was an attempt to repair their marriage. Instead, Elara calmly placed a folder on the picnic table. Inside were copies of the financial documents, evidence of the affair, and legal paperwork already prepared. Grant's face turned pale. He realized immediately that she had known everything for months. The silence between them felt heavier than any argument could have. Elara gently explained that discovering the affair had broken her heart, but discovering the secret loans had destroyed her trust completely. Marriage could survive many hardships, she said, but it could never survive continuous dishonesty. She had given him countless opportunities to tell the truth, yet every single day he had chosen another lie. Grant broke down. For the first time since their marriage began falling apart, he accepted full responsibility without making excuses. He admitted his selfishness, confessed that he had convinced himself he deserved happiness after feeling overwhelmed by work and responsibilities, and acknowledged that every decision he had made had only created greater pain. He apologized repeatedly, but even he understood that apologies could not erase months of deception. Elara listened quietly. She no longer felt the urge to argue. She no longer needed answers. The healing had already begun long before that conversation. She calmly explained that she had forgiven him in her heart because carrying hatred would only poison her own future. Forgiveness, however, did not mean restoring trust. Some bridges, once burned repeatedly, could no longer safely carry the weight of a family. Grant wept openly. Watching him cry brought Elara no satisfaction. Months earlier she had imagined revenge as seeing him suffer. Now she realized genuine healing left no room for celebrating another person's pain. She simply felt sad that two people who had once loved each other had arrived at such an ending. The divorce process remained respectful. Because Elara had carefully prepared financially and legally, unnecessary conflict was avoided. Grant accepted responsibility for the debts he had created and agreed to a fair settlement that protected Marin's future. They both promised never to use their daughter as a weapon against one another. Adjusting to life after divorce wasn't easy. There were afternoons when Elara sat alone in the quiet house remembering happier times. Certain songs reminded her of road trips they had taken together. Certain restaurants brought back memories of anniversaries filled with genuine laughter. Healing wasn't a straight path. Some days still hurt. But unlike before, the pain no longer controlled her. Each morning she chose hope again. Her business continued growing steadily. Within 2 years, she employed several talented designers, mentoring young women who dreamed of building careers while balancing family responsibilities. She often encouraged them never to abandon their ambitions simply because life became complicated. Marin flourished as well. Watching her mother rebuild life through courage rather than bitterness shaped the young girl in remarkable ways. She became confident, compassionate, and emotionally resilient. Whenever friends struggled with family difficulties, Marin reminded them that people could survive heartbreak and still become happy again because she had witnessed it with her own eyes. Grant also changed. Losing the family he had taken for granted forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself. He entered counseling, rebuilt damaged relationships with relatives, and worked consistently to become a better father. Although his marriage could never be restored, he remained present in Marin's life, attending school events, cheering at sports competitions, and keeping every promise he made. His greatest regret became his greatest teacher. Several years later, Elara received an award recognizing her company as one of the region's fastest-growing design firms. During the afternoon ceremony, she looked across the audience and noticed Marin smiling proudly in the front row. Nearby, Grant applauded respectfully, understanding that the woman standing confidently on that stage was no longer the frightened wife he had betrayed years earlier. She had transformed pain into purpose, loss into strength, heartbreak into hope. As the applause echoed through the bright hall, Elara realized something beautiful. The revenge she had imagined on the day she discovered the affair had never actually happened. She hadn't destroyed Grant's life. She hadn't humiliated him publicly. She hadn't spread hatred or sought endless punishment. Instead, she had built a life so meaningful, peaceful, and successful that his betrayal no longer defined her story. That became the greatest victory of all. Before we reach the end of this journey, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment below and tell us, do you believe forgiveness is possible after betrayal, or do some broken promises change a relationship forever? Your thoughts may encourage someone who is silently fighting the same battle today. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember, someone else's betrayal should never become the reason you stop believing in your own worth. Sometimes the strongest revenge is not making another person suffer, it is choosing to heal, choosing to grow, and choosing to build a life so full of purpose that the pain eventually becomes only one chapter in a much greater story. Hope always belongs to those who refuse to give up on themselves.